Welcome to a discussion of Tudor England's foreign policy for Elizabeth I. If you watched an earlier video, you may have noticed that Elizabeth became queen in 1558 and had some work to do in terms of religion. She also had some work to do with foreign policy, and it was something that she worked hard at doing. I'm here at the Bodleian Library in Oxford, and right behind me is the collection of history books that relate to Tudor England, and we've been working on those in spring 2020. One of the things we learned is that when Elizabeth did her foreign policy in the 1559, 1560, she had a number of things to think about. I want to just summarize them based on the countries quickly, okay? And first, we have a peace treaty with France in 1559. The English decided, hey, we need to make peace with France because this war that had been going on between England and France on and off for hundreds of years was bankrupting both countries, really. War was getting more expensive, armies were getting bigger, they were starting to use more equipment, munitions and things like that, and so the English wanted out. Henry VIII really wanted to expand his territories in France. Elizabeth wanted out, and she actually sold off Calais, the last English post there, so that the English wouldn't have to worry about that anymore, and she got a chunk of money from France for it. So in 1559, as part of a European-wide peace treaty, she was able to make peace with France, and that was very helpful to Scotland. Had always been an ally of France in something called the All Alliance, and once that conflict with France was over, it sort of softened in some ways with Scotland as well. And soon the English, after a few skirmishes with Scotland, eventually settled on a kind of a compatible course. And by the end of Elizabeth's reign, the next king of England will come from Scotland. Also, they had to deal with Spain. And in the 1580s, the conflict with Spain really grew. This is somewhat ironic, but maybe the two countries were just on different courses. But Mary I was married to Philip of Spain, and by the 1580s, England was at war with Spain. And so that happened in 1585 in a proxy country, the Netherlands, the Low Countries, in which Protestants and Catholics were fighting there. England was supporting the Protestants, and Spain was supporting the Catholics, and they'll eventually partition some of the lands there. The area of Belgium would actually sort of stay under Spanish rule and stay Roman Catholic. But after 1585, the English were supplying Protestant forces there to go against the Spanish, and it annoyed the Spanish greatly. And Philip II was still king after all these years. You know, he was married to Mary I in the 1550s, but he's still the king of Spain. And he decides to go to war against he decides to go to war against England. And in 1588, the Spanish Armada sails against England. And I'm going to talk about that in another video and give you some logistics about what that might have looked like. But England had many things to think about in terms of foreign policy. Yes, it was an island nation, and that had saved England many times in the past, but also invaders had come across the seas, and we need to look no earlier really than the Norman invasion of 1066, in which England was overrun by new peoples. Obviously, the Vikings came and had success going against England, and earlier Anglo-Saxon peoples were formed when the Saxons invaded after the Roman Empire declined. Of course, the Romans came too, so it was very possible to invade England. And it was something that we account to Elizabeth's skill and success, and also the Cecils, their success in their foreign policy and keeping these different groups out, including the Spanish. So that is the second thing that Elizabeth was worried about, foreign policy, and I hope that summary gives you a little insight into it.